I formally declare open this unscheduled council meeting of Colac Otway Shire on 5th of July 2023. Almighty God, we seek your blessing and guidance in our deliberations on behalf of the people of the Colac Otway Shire. Enable these council's decisions to be those that contribute to the true welfare and betterment of our community. Amen. I'd like to start this afternoon by acknowledging the traditional custodians and lawmakers of this land, their elders past and present, and welcome any descendants here today. Please be advised that this unscheduled council meeting is recorded and live streamed with the exception of confidential matters. This includes the public participation sections of meetings. The live stream recording of this afternoon's meeting will be available on the website as soon as practicable. By participating in open council meetings, individuals consent to the use and disclosure of the information they share at the meeting, including any personal and/or sensitive information. The purpose of this unscheduled council meeting is to consider the item Proposed Local Law endorsed for exhibition. I note that all 7 councillors are present. Moving on to question time. Colac Otway Shire Council encourages community input, and integral to this is the opportunity provided to ask questions at council meetings. A maximum of 15 minutes is allowed for question time in unscheduled council meetings. Community members wishing to ask questions of council by video conferencing were requested to register their intention before 5 p.m. on Monday, 3rd of July 2023. No requests were received, and also we have not received any questions in writing for this meeting. We only have one person in the gallery, Mr. Judge there, but I can't see him. So before we proceed with questions from the gallery, can I remind everyone that question time is for questions only and not a forum for public debate or statements. As this is an unscheduled council meeting, questions today need to be in relation to the item on the agenda. When asking a question, please state your full name for the minutes. Any questions, Mr. Judd? Thank you. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 7.1, proposed local law endorsed for exhibition. The purpose of this report is to seek council resolution to exhibit the proposed General Local Law 1, Attachment 1 of the report, and proposed local law guidelines, Attachment 2 of the report, as an incorporated document of the local law in accordance with Section 73 of the Local Government Act 2020. Do councillors have any questions of officers? Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor Chris. This is to Heath or Rochelle, please. Just a question in respect, I noticed a significant change or increase in the number of maximum penalty units that may be applied or changed or charged against laws and or infringement of those laws. And given that the state government has indexed that value of each unit from about $114 in 2013-14 to now about $192, I just wondered if you could explain to the community why the number of units has changed. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. So in the document, the maximum amount of penalty units is set out, which would be if the offence or went to the Magistrates Court. Schedule 1 of the document refers to the penalty units that we would apply.
So in a practical sense, have they changed from last year as with respect to council's application of those penalty units?
I think the maximum changed from 10 to 20, and this is what the magistrate can charge. Our infringement penalties are contained in Schedule 1 of the local law, which is a maximum probably of 4 on other offences.
So they're consistent with the previous schedule?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. When you're ready, I have an alternative to what's on the agenda, but I have a question through you. Assuming we pass this and put this document out, is there going to be some extra information about what the changes are or the proposed changes are? Because I think the document by itself obviously has a lot in it, but it may be difficult to understand the significance of the changes otherwise.
Thanks, CEO.
Yeah, I might just respond to Councillor Hart through the Mayor. So the community impact statement does provide the readers, the community, with some understanding about the specific clauses that are in the proposed local law. I understand the benefit of there being a way to show a comparison of what might have changed from previous ones. The difficulty is because to map 3 documents to now what is a wholly rewritten single document is not so straightforward. But we will think about, is there a way that we can maybe highlight rather than clause by clause, the material changes in some sort of summary and try and make that available I think on our website we could do something like that.
Any other questions? Councillor Hart, you flagged an alternative.
Yes, Mayor, and I note that we have a revised officer recommendation. My alternative is that we have 35 days at point 1, and also later in the resolution that would mean that the unscheduled meeting, as they're called now, would have to be on the 16th of August rather than the 9th. They're the 2 changes.
Thank you, and you're satisfied that what's up on the screen is your alternative that you wish to move?
I think it is, I hope so.
Righto, that's good enough. Is there a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Hanson. Is it to be opposed? Councillor Hart.
Thanks, Mayor. I think that I should speak to this in some detail. The local laws that Council currently has, Local Law 1, 2 and 3, are due to sunset or expire in about August or September. They have slightly different dates. This year, local laws sunset after 10 years unless they're varied. There's a lot in this document, there's a lot in the agenda today, so in some sense I feel not quite sure where to start. I would like to thank the council officer, particularly Russell, who has been involved in writing these laws and dealing with a lot of queries in a very short time, given the amount of work involved. So I do appreciate that. Due to the sunset of the laws, the council recommendation was that we only have 28 days of consultation when our consultation policy prefers 6 weeks. It does make it clear that it doesn't have to be 6 weeks, but it's the preference in our policy. What I've suggested is that we have 5 weeks to try to give the community some extra time with this, which is trying to balance it. Otherwise we could be left with a short period when the other local laws have expired and the new ones haven't come in, but I'm quite confident that our community won't break out into complete anarchy if that happens for a few days. I have great confidence that won't happen. I'm going to briefly touch on some of the points, but before I do that, I really encourage the community to have a look at these laws. If you've got any questions about them or these proposed laws, ask council or your councillors. And I think what we have come up with in this recommendation is an improvement on what was in the agenda, and what was in the agenda was an improvement on what we have currently. Some of the examples, and inevitably I'm going to miss many of the changes. I brought to council's attention when we discussed this early on that if you were out trying to cut weeds next to your property in a local road, you probably needed a permit to do that under the current laws. Under these laws, as I understand it, you won't need a permit to do that. So there's trying to simplify some of that sort of thing. There's currently laws that deal with camping on privately owned land. That's now been separated into 2 clauses: to camping on privately owned land where a dwelling's erected, and a suggestion that you should be able to do that for 6 months without needing any sort of permit. Currently, under the current laws, I think you can only do that for 28 days and then several times a year. So trying to make that somewhat more flexible, and given the housing crisis, I think we should be trying to recognise that some families would might house someone in a caravan or something like that on their property. Some of the changes that's in this resolution is making it clear that a clause that appeared to restrict people parking their cars in the street was actually to do with storage of caravans and trailers for extended periods. There's some other clauses that we've come in this resolution which is not on the agenda, which makes it clear that if a Community Asset Committee approves an event such as a Shire Hall, it might be a birthday party, it might be a wedding, it might be when the Electoral Commission hires the hall to be a polling place, that you don't then need to apply for a separate permit from the council, because the Community Asset Committee is in fact delegated to act on behalf of the council in relation to that particular hall or facility. We don't want to overwhelm the volunteers in our community with even more work and red tape. There's been various statements that have to be prepared that will go out in terms of the validity or potential validity of these laws in terms of complying with the requirements of the Act. And this 5 weeks consultation, it's not perfect. I would have preferred at least the 6, but it's certainly improvement on 4. I'd encourage that people have a look at it during that period and raise any concerns. And if they want to speak to their submission, they want to make a submission, and a submission just means an email to council about the matter, then they can say that they want to speak at a meeting that will be held, if this is passed, on the 16th of August. So please put that in your calendar if you want to talk to a submission about these local laws.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Councillor Hanson, did you wish to speak?
Yes, I'll support this motion, and I think it is a good idea that we extend the public consultation to as long as we possibly can, but I will note that that will put a bit of pressure on council staff. But I think giving an extended period of just an extra week just might be what's needed for some people to have a good look at these local laws, because they are quite extensive, and to make a submission if they so wish. I'd also like to thank the council officers for the work that they've put in to get these local laws to where they are now. Over the past 9 months, council staff has been reviewing the existing provisions in the 3 existing local laws, and they've been doing this, by a team of people have been reviewing the local laws and have been looking at things like council records, such as customer requests over the last 3 to 4 years. What were recurring themes? What were, some of the things that people were bringing up about? Certainly helped to to get the information needed to review the local laws. We've also looked at feedback from internal council departments and councillors, and also community consultation through an online survey on key issues. So that they're all the types of things that have been gone on to go into redrafting these proposed local laws, which is where we find ourselves today. And the community now get a further opportunity to review the draft local laws, have a really thorough look at them. There'll be things that certain people in the community are interested in, and I would certainly encourage people to make a submission and make a verbal submission and take a real interest in these local laws. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hanson. Any other councillor? Councillor Costin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank the council officers who've done a huge amount of work right up to just before this meeting, and trying to get the right content in our local law. I'd also like to thank the 231 submitters to our survey, which was undertaken in April this year. 87% of those were residents, and some of the things that were raised during that survey, like short-term accommodation and the lack of understanding of the infringement review process, might not be in this particular local law, but they haven't been forgotten, and we will be looking at those. So thank you very much for all those submissions. Thank you.
Councillor Arnott?
Thank you, Mayor Potter. I'd also like to commend to the public the local laws for their consideration. There's been considerable work done to ensure that these laws are put together in a framework that's reasonably easy to understand and for access. We have had, as a council members, good opportunity for feedback, as been discussed by Councillor Costin and Councillor Hart. This has resulted in changes right up until the last minute today. And like Councillor Hart, I had fed into a couple of areas for me that was clarity around the penalties, which we just had the question from officers about, and also around burning off for those parts of the Shire which sort of don't fall into farming areas outside of the township, but really not in a township. That's the rural living zones, which need assistance for clearing for fire hazards. So the laws are there to protect our community, to have capacity to live a free lifestyle and protect the rights of others. That's the primary purpose of the laws. So we've had, I said, as part of this process, as Councillor Costin said, we had sought the opinions in a survey. Some of those items have not been covered in this laws, but will be addressed later. So I would encourage everyone to feed back into this as much as possible.
Thank you. Any other councillor? Thanks, councillor. Councillor White.
Just very quickly, to just highlight that it's 10 years since the laws have been reviewed, and so it is a very complex and big piece of work, and really appreciate the work that the officers have put in, especially we've got some new people in the last 6 to 12 months, and to come in and do that piece of work has been very challenging, but they've done a great job. Councillor Hart highlighted, I think, the extension to camping on private land where there is an existing dwelling. And I just want to say I think that is a great review of the law that, as it did stand before, it reflects that it's very difficult times in the housing situation, not just for our community, but for the whole country really, and I guess by extending it out to 6 months without needing a permit does reflect our acknowledgement of the difficult times people are facing and the housing crisis. It's a small thing but a significant thing, and I think it's worth highlighting. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor Finnegan, did you wish to say something?
Oh yeah, I'll just throw my 2 cents in at the end here, but I think it's just like to echo the statements of other councillors. Thank you to the council officers who worked very hard on this, including, as Councillor Costin has pointed out, right up until this meeting to get this into a format that we can all agree to. And other than that, to say, I encourage the public to look at this when we send it out and have your say on what you think the local law should be, or make a submission and have your voice heard.
Thanks, councillor Finnegan. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried 7-0. Thanks, councillors and staff, for the way you've worked together today, and that concludes today's meeting.